I was actually kind of happy with how SparkingZero seemed to be turning out, and I only took one issue with how they've been advertising it. And the only thing I really object to is how they're marketing it, because they're trying to sell this as a sequel to the Budokai Tenkaichi series. And the reason why that even bothers me is this isn't the first time they tried to do that. If you look back to around 2012-ish, there's still evidence that they marketed the Raging Blast games as in as sequels to the Budokai Tenkaichi series. And it didn't really work out then because they changed too much. The controls were significantly different. It just played a little bit differently. They balanced the characters a little bit more than when compared to Budokai Tenkaichi 3. And so it just ended up being a different kind of 3D fighting game, despite the many ways that it resembled those old PS2 games. So it ended up being a little bit of a worse game, and the series just didn't do well. Raging Blast just kind of flopped by the time the second game came out. And so now we're here in 2024 and SparkingZero is about to come out, and I'll admit that having a control scheme that might be almost identical to the Budokai Tenkaichi games does lend some credit, but that's also an optional control scheme. But kind of what goes counter to that possibly is they added a bunch of different defensive related mechanics that are not present in the Budokai Tenkaichi series, so that you have more ways to respond to someone being aggressive to you. In the Tenkaichi games, it was all about being aggressive and putting on pressure and doing big combos and spamming supers until you destroy your opponent and stuff. But obviously, it's not going to be that way in this game. Movement was also a big thing. Like, you could dash practically all the way across the map really fast, and they're limiting movement with the energy with your key bar now in the SparkingZero series. So they're already changing enough to make it significantly play differently. So I think it's more accurate to describe SparkingZero as inspired by the Budokai Tenkaichi series in the similar sense that the Raging Blast games were inspired by the Budokai Tenkaichi series, because we are getting a game that's still a bit different from those old PS2 games, and it might be a better game, it might be a much better game, but those old PS2 games had stuff about them that were quirks that people liked, that were very fan servicey things. Like, Devilman was a super gimmicky character in the Budokai Tenkaichi games, and very situational, because you could pretty much one-shot evil characters with a special move, and it only worked on evil characters, and did damage based on how evil they were. So you're not going to have stuff like that in this new game. There are also characters that were kind of useless or not as good as the majority of the characters. They tended to be Dragon Ball characters, and also Hercule slash Mr. Satan being kind of a useless, weak character. And they're trying to balance this enough for online. They're making it so you can use Dragon Points associated with each character. So depending on how strong a character is, they'll be worth a certain number of Dragon Points. You might have 15 Dragon Points to build a team, and then you go to online, ranked or whatever, and play games. So someone like Hercule probably has to at least be worth 1 Dragon Point, and he can't be a useless character. So it's not going to mean too much if you're kicking people's butt with him, because he still has to try to be kind of balanced to the game, because they're trying to make it a little bit fair, and that's just making a different kind of game. Like, that's just having different goals. A fair competitive game is different from a game that's all about fan service and little gimmicks and stuff, and kind of representing the silly, ridiculous power scaling stuff in the series. So there's different goals between SparkingZero and Budokai Tenkaichi, the series, in my opinion. And we're going to see how that works out. And maybe we'll get a better game, who knows.
Here it comes! Go! I finally made it. I almost thought I was done for there.